There are people who are successful, there are celebrities who are true world stars, and then there is Michael Jackson, a man so unbelievably famous, loved, and celebrated that to this day, no other celebrity has even come close to his level. When Michael Jackson performed, he captivated massive crowds like no one had ever done before, and his music was heard by people all around the world, no matter how rich or poor they were or where they lived. But Michael Jackson's unimaginable fame also took a heavy toll on him. He could never just go out in public like a normal person. He had hardly any true friends he could fully trust. And even as a child, he was pushed towards success, something that ultimately destroyed him. And so the King of Pop passed away in 2009 at only 50 years old, and the world lost one of its most famous inhabitants. You already know all of that, but what you probably don't know is everything that happened afterward with Michael Jackson's body. Because in truth, Michael Jackson had anything but a peaceful rest in death. In this video, we'll show you the spectacular story of Michael Jackson's body and what was done with it, and what incredible discoveries were made along the way. Let's start with one of the most important stops that Michael Jackson's body made, his final resting place. Around 10 weeks after his death, the King of Pop was finally buried in a cemetery. More precisely, he was laid to rest during a private funeral ceremony at California's Forest Lawn Memorial Park. Not in a simple grave, nor beneath a large, elaborate monument. In fact, Jackson's family chose to bury Michael inside the cemetery's so-called Great Mausoleum. This mausoleum is actually designed like a full cathedral, but it isn't used for church services or special events. It exists purely as a burial site for some of the most famous celebrities in the world. Here you'll also find the remains of entertainment legends such as Elizabeth Taylor, Nat King Cole, and Clark Gable. Each of them has their own crypt, a private chamber within the church. As you can see in this footage, Michael Jackson's crypt includes something quite extraordinary. A guard who actually protects his grave during the day. What's truly incredible is the way Michael Jackson's body was placed inside his crypt. And it starts with his coffin. It's a massive bronze casket costing $25,000, covered with 14-karat gold and lined with blue velvet. The coffin itself is set deep into the concrete of the mausoleum, meaning that visitors can't even see it. In fact, people aren't allowed to enter Michael Jackson's crypt at all. They have to say their goodbyes to the musician from outside. You might think that Michael Jackson finally found peace in death, but that's not the case at all, because the idea that Michael Jackson, as everyone believed, was a sickly man who lightened his skin to appear whiter was actually a complete misconception, and far from the only one. To clear up these misconceptions, we first have to go back to the very first stop for Michael Jackson's body, the Los Angeles County Coroner's Office. The musician's body was brought there just one day after his death, and what the medical examiners led by Dr. Lakshmanan Sathya Vagiswaran discovered completely turned the public image of Michael Jackson upside down. The biggest secret uncovered had to do with his skin. For decades, Jackson was accused of denying his African-American heritage and bleaching his skin to become white, an accusation that deeply hurt him and that he always denied. The autopsy, however, provided the final answer to what really happened with his skin. The forensic examination revealed that Michael Jackson truly suffered from vitiligo, a chronic skin disease that leaves irregular white patches on the body. The doctors found clear, widespread areas of depigmentation on his chest, stomach, face, and arms. The condition was so advanced that it was easier for him to lighten the remaining dark areas with makeup rather than trying to cover the ever-growing white patches. Suddenly, his appearance made sense. The gloves, the makeup, the long sleeves. All of that wasn't just a stylistic choice. Michael Jackson was also trying to hide a disease that had scarred him inside and out. But that wasn't the only surprise of the autopsy. In fact, a second and perhaps even more unexpected discovery was made. It had to do with the King of Pop's physical health. In the years leading up to his death, the musician had faced many problems. He had become severely underweight, could barely sleep, and his use of painkillers and medications had completely spiraled out of control. At the time, many media outlets speculated that Jackson was suffering from various illnesses, and it was widely believed that his physical condition was very poor. Yet this is where the medical examiners discovered something shocking. Michael Jackson, for a 50-year-old man, was actually in excellent health. His heart was strong and there were no signs of serious health issues. His kidneys and most of his vital organs were in perfect condition. He did suffer from mild arthritis in his hands and lower spine, and from chronic lung inflammation condition, which might have slightly affected his breathing, but none of it was life-threatening. The man many thought to be a physical wreck was, at his core, actually a very healthy person. All of this was discovered by the forensic team just one day after the musician's death, but this would not be the only autopsy performed on Michael Jackson, because the King of Pop's family was not satisfied with these findings. They asked themselves, how could a healthy man simply die like that? The examination did determine that he died from an overdose of the anesthetic drug propofol, but it still left one major question unanswered. Who gave him this substance? Was it Jackson himself because he was so dependent on medication, or was it someone else, perhaps even his own personal doctor? To find that out, his body was sent for another second private autopsy. What's shocking is that this autopsy went extremely far. Not only were skin samples taken and organs analyzed, but the forensic experts actually did something quite unusual. They opened Michael Jackson's skull and removed his brain. Michael Jackson's brain was then completely separated from his body and placed in a formaldehyde solution. It remained there for several weeks until it hardened, at which point the examiners could slice it, piece by piece, like a loaf of bread. But this wasn't done to study Michael Jackson's genius or musical talent, but the purpose was to determine whether Jackson had a drug addiction. If he did, that would have greatly affected the case against his doctor and the circumstances surrounding his death. In fact, the findings revealed that Michael Jackson's brain was completely healthy, and that he was not suffering from any severe drug addiction that would have forced him to take hard narcotics. Yet even after all these examinations, Michael Jackson was still not officially buried. On the contrary, a spectacular public event took place with his body and his coffin at the center of attention. Jackson's family rented the legendary Staples Center in Los Angeles, and under the eyes of 20,000 spectators, relatives and celebrities alike gave speeches for Jackson, while his coffin stood in the background. This funeral service could easily be one of the largest in human history, not only because world-famous musicians like Lionel Richie, Stevie Wonder, and Mariah Carey performed, but because the event was watched by an astonishing 1 billion viewers around the world. Which brings us to the question, was Michael Jackson's body really inside the coffin during the show? It was never officially confirmed to be Coffin, but it's considered quite likely that he truly was inside the coffin during the ceremony. By the way, his body wasn't simply placed there as is. Beforehand, it had been preserved in quite a spectacular way, almost like mummification. The embalmers completely replaced his blood with a preservative fluid to stop decomposition. According to reports, he wore one of his famous jackets decorated with pearls and crystals, black trousers, and of course, his single white sparkling glove. He was carefully made up to look exactly as the world knew and loved him, like a star, ready for his final great performance. His coffin was truly extravagant as well. The family chose the Promethean model from the Batesville Casket Company, the same model used to bury soul legend James Brown. On September 3rd, 2009, a full 70 days after his death, the moment finally came. His body, reunited with his brain, preserved and dressed for eternity, was laid to rest in his royal coffin. If you found this video interesting, leave a like and subscribe. Bye, and see you next time.